Katina's in the house. Hi, guys. All right, you guys are all gonna need a pen and paper for this, or a pad. I'm pretty pad friendly myself. I find it's good because I could keep track of my stuff better. But we're gonna really go through like what is happening from intermittent fasting. So we're gonna do some reflection and calculation. We're gonna be calculating results. I find if you don't calculate stuff, you just honestly don't know. Like you just don't know your metrics, you don't know your results, you don't know what's happening. And so you end up making decisions in a way that's totally not data driven, totally not informed. And if we look at like what's happened with technology and humanity is like we've realized that like we have so much data and it's so super helpful that we might as well actually use it to drive behaviors that we want to experience more of the similar results in the future. So it just gives us a lot more control. All right, you guys, hi, welcome. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is screen share. And again, it'll probably take us about 15 minutes to calculate results. It won't take that long. And then we'll be able to go pretty quickly into Q&A. There are a bunch of questions written in from the forum too. All right, so we've been here for 21 days. Congratulations. Let's see what happened. So the first thing I want you guys to look at is like in terms of how much money will you have saved from IF. And so I don't know if anyone's having this experience, but I'm definitely having this experience. The more I do these challenges and do intermittent fasting and play with that right at my edge for stage of life and my personal goals, is that I like look at my refrigerator and sometimes I'm like, I can't believe how long this food will last me and how much my perspective has changed, just around food. So if we look at how we might start to calculate just money in general, often food costs are a big thing. Like when you actually start to get in touch with how much food your body needs for optimal performance, like what your body actually wants, not like what your emotional body or your, self-soothing body needs, right? Because there's a transition period where you're probably going to continue to overeat, right? Would everyone agree with that? As the emotional body catches up, like there's a period where you're just like, I have no idea like how little fuel. So I was walking with my neighbor today. We walk almost every morning. And she was like, what's crazy about my alcoholic mother is that she barely eats, but she's pretty like, her health is falling apart because she's an alcoholic. But like, other than that, like my friend can't believe how little this woman eats. And I was like, well, all the studies on calorie restriction go to longevity. So if you eat 30% less than like the daily recommended amount to eat as a human being, you'll actually like live longer and have less health problems, which to me always makes me think like, well, who's making the daily recommended amount to eat if it's not that? So as part of the process of intermittent fasting, what you might really have a huge question mark around is like, how much food do I need to eat? And how much does that food cost? So take a moment and sort of think about it. I know many of us don't really realize how much money we spend at the grocery store or at restaurants, but if you can think about that in a typical week is probably good. And then take the week estimate and just multiply it by 52. Okay, is everyone with me? Okay, good. Now, how much you want to include all things that go in your mouth, it's not a bad idea because all those things change with intermittent fasting. So anyone who's just joining, we're doing a 20-minute calculation on intermittent fasting, and we're trying to get an assessment of exactly what our results are. And exactly in the first part of just money, we're going to go through money, we're going to go through time, we're going to go through attention, and we're going to go through focus, because those are the four main areas that I really notice massive life changes from this one habit, which is why there's a million things we could teach here, truly, maybe not a million, but at least 1,000. And we teach this one intermittent fasting to get into our health club, because that's the habit the health club has. And it's that important in all the research and all the life experience, East meets West, everything points to intermittent fasting, period, exclamation point, if you want to experience being a human being. And it's that simple. Everything outside of that is a degenerative human being. It's a different species. So that's why we do this. Okay, so how much money are we saving? That's where we're at right now. And what we're looking at first is food costs. We're really, of this list, we're just looking at food first, calculating how much money do we typically spend a week. You can just take an average of the last few years, what you normally spend, and now what you think you actually will be spending in the future. I know when I open my fridge, I open my cupboards, I'm like, oh my gosh, like we really don't need to go to the store again yet. Including my 14-year-old, including my very active 49-year-old, he just turned 49-year-old husband. We also entertain quite a bit. We entertain other children and adults. And still, I'm like, this is pretty amazing how intermittent fasting just totally realigns with what food is and then what food costs. Now, some of you are going to spend more money on specific nutrients, but your overall food cost should be going down. Okay, secondly, alcohol. Has anyone just noticed, just quick raise of hands, alcohol consumption falling in the last 3 weeks? Anna's saying yes, Jill, yes, Laura, Nicole, Sophie. And I'm not saying like Shay, I'm not saying like we're big drinkers around here either, right? But still, it's noteworthy to notice. You might also notice like you only want premium organic alcohols in the future, because you just start to feel like, damn, if I'm gonna put it into the temple, like I might as well enjoy the good stuff. So even though you might find that you're buying better stuff because you're consuming less frequently, there's an overall money differential, and just calculate what that is. Okay, healthcare costs. Healthcare costs show up in a lot of different ways. They show up in inefficiencies. We're not going to get quite as much into that right now. We'll get into that more in the focus section. In terms of calculating right now, like health can go into buying supplements, scheduling appointments, needing to go to more classes rather than just having efficiency of doing things on your own. We find a lot of ways that people spend on health just start to be more optional rather than just part of the monthly expense. I think that's super worth noticing as someone who I'm a pretty heavy investor in my personal health. And yet still I do notice that the more I turn up intermittent fasting for real, deal with the healing crises that it brings on, mostly through a fasting response and a hydration response and a healing response to needing to heal, the more I just need less outside services for health and outside supplements. And I'm not like reaching for straws sort of thing for things that come up. Okay, so just quick calculation on that. That might be easier to calculate for some of you on a monthly basis. Like, where does health money go for you if you're honest with yourself? Okay, and then lastly, we're just going to look at buying stuff you don't need. Buying stuff you don't need is an interesting response. We are living in a consumer culture right now. And so what that means is that even more than I see this with children a lot now, it's somewhat scary to me. But rather than really thinking about who we are as a being, who we are as someone living a life of purpose and meaning and vision into action, we're actually just like concerned about buying shit. Kids, you can see this where they want to buy a thing and they know what thing they want to buy. It's kind of weird. So being in a consumer culture rather than a creator culture or a citizen-driven culture, it has its consequences. One of those consequences happens to be we buy shit we don't need. Don't we? Don't we? Yes, we do. And companies like Amazon, it's Prime Day today in the United States, which means they're going to sell a ton of shit that no one needs. Probably shit people have already bought and have in their house. Right? Okay, so with intermittent fasting, because we're simply consuming less, we start to consume less in all areas of our life. So we start to do less, we start to do better, we start to know why, to quote Cal Newport. And that's super significant. We're going to look at time savings next. But I need you guys to calculate, like, if you really think about it, how might just disposable shit I don't need spending drop a month, and then multiply that by 12, add it to your pile of change that you will save with this one habit. I know, I'm making you guys work and think. You just wanted to sit back and listen to Q&A, but this is good. I promise this is good medicine for you. It's good to know your own numbers. I would really like you all to fact check it against your bank account or credit card, however you tend to do most of your transactions. You might need both of those statements open to actually get a ballpark number on a monthly basis. It really helps to know, because if you need a motivator and you know that, like, not only will you be at your optimal weight and optimal energy level, but you're actually going to save 10K a year with one single habit, then it's worth noticing that. It's worth knowing your data. It's worth knowing your numbers. Okay, good. Do you guys have a number, even if it's the wrong number, some ballpark number now when you tally up monthly food savings, health savings, multiplied by 12, monthly alcohol savings, including going, if you're just simply going to the bars less or getting more into where you really want to be and how you really want to use money, how that might cut down on alcohol or eating out costs, and then buying stuff you don't need monthly multiplied by 12, and then add it all up. Do we have numbers? We have a number. Who's the first one to get their number? I want to see them in the chat too. Shay's at 8,400 a year. Katina's at 10,000. Yeah, worth doing the data on, right? OMG. I mean, you guys, I look back, I was dragged in and out of doctor's offices as a child. And honestly, intermittent fasting and hydration, my guess is it's all I really needed. All right, and the amount of time that wasted in my life, pain, etc. Okay, good. Sophie's at 4,200 a year. Sophie's still in college, so that's significant. So she's not speaking for the household, she's speaking for an individual. Floor's at $11,420 a year, like those numbers. Okay, good. You guys ready to move on to part 2? Okay, this is going to take longer than 20 minutes, but I'll try to get us through as quickly as I can. Okay, we're going to calculate time. Now, I do equate my time with money. And because I'll buy back my time any day of the week. I really will. Like, I love time. Love vast expanses of time to do exactly what I want to do, exactly in the moment. And so I super, super value time. And if I'm going to value time, that means it's got to have a dollar sign, because that's how we value things in a consumer culture. I'm not the writer of the rules. I'm just following along with culture at this point. But I need to put a dollar sign on my time. So how much time is intermittent fasting going to save you a month? Now, buying food, prepping food, eating food, cleaning up. We're going to start here. I think many of you right now know about how many meals you should be eating a day for you. Is that true after the last 21 days? Even if you don't like it, even if you don't like that, if you're like self-soothing emotional body is throwing a hissy fit when you're honest with yourself, do you all have a pretty good idea of what should be your average eating window, average number of meals a day? Yeah, okay, good. Few. Because that's a huge accomplishment to do that in 21 days, I promise you. Like, just you knowing that. I mean, for me, it's a 24. Do I like it? I mean, my old self would have thrown freaking hissy fits all the freaking time. But like myself now is like, well, gosh, that's kind of cool. I only need to like focus on food like within a 4-hour window a day. It shrinks my stomach. I don't have to work out as much, and I'm in a kind of amazing shape for, who I am in my age category, etc. Like, if we all rode mountain bikes up that mountain, with the exception maybe of Shay, I'd probably kick all your asses. Shay, and we would make a run for it. We would have a prize. Maybe we should do that. Yeah, let's do that in August. That'll be fun. Okay, so I think I have the advantage of altitude, so you better get on working on your cardio. Okay, so in any case, like what is this amount of time? First, estimate daily. I think that's really the way to do it, is daily, and then just multiply that number by 365. Just so you have a good idea of how much time it will save you a year. It might be hard. You might have to take daily, and then if you're shopping less, right, if that, just add that in times 52. Does that make sense? So if you're like, I'm spending an hour less time in grocery stores or half an hour less time a week in grocery stores, that, to me, that's significant, because that's still 26 hours a year. And if I asked you, like, what would you do with 26 hours of free time a year? I'm sure you could come up with something more fun than picking out food at the grocery store, standing in the checkout line, packing, unpacking, driving back and forth. Yeah, getting some nods. Yeah, some of you would do something else with that 26 hours a year. Okay, super, good to know. Okay, how are we at? We have a good estimate now of buying food, prepping food, eating food, cleaning up, how much time that would save a day multiplied by 365. Let's see some numbers in the chat of where we're at. Okay, Nicole's at 730 hours, so that's, that's roughly a little more than about 2 hours a day. Significant. Anyone with families, this is significant. Again, like, I'm a mom, but like, yeah, it's significant with families, and you still, but it, it's probably gonna even, it just saves you more time the more people you add on to this. Okay, so people are around 2 hours a day, or 730 hours. Now, I do need you to calculate what your hourly wage is worth. So some of you outsource your services, myself included, and I'm not cheap. So let's say my time to me is worth $500 an hour, and I know that's high. And I wasn't always high. My time at one point was worth $80 an hour. Now it's probably honestly worth somewhere, around that. So then I just multiply that number by that. If your time is worth $30 an hour, that's great. Multiply 30 by 750 and put your number, because again, now we're just going to add that number to the how much money you saved in food. Jill's at $146,000, right? Like, that's just another paycheck. Yeah. My next car is paid for, is what Nicole's answering. Yeah, you can answer this in super creative ways. Sophie, you might even think of it being in school as where that time would go that is income producing or is skill producing, because you're still paying for skills. I mean, I pay for skills all the time too. Currently, I'll never stop paying for skills. But you can get creative ways of like how you would invest that extra, those hours. So courses, you guys, are usually calculated in hours. College credits are calculated also in hours. So you can look at it that way of like, oh, I could potentially take 2 less or add 2 more college credits, depending if you want to do more or do less. Okay, for Laura, it's her remodeled kitchen. I really like this, that you guys are equating meaning with it. That's really super important, that you have both the dollar sign and the meaning. We'll attach meaning when we get to the whole total calculation. All right, next calculation, what are you doing instead with your attention? I put categories for me, like I do spend more time outside because I'm in the kitchen less. For me, that's important. Outside is a critical primal habit. Humans are just healthier when we're outside. So if your kitchen is inside, that's my point here. Kitchen is inside. For most of us are not have an outdoor kitchen facility. If you do, man, give me the pics. I should do that. That sounds amazing. I may have to figure that out in certain homes and certain climates. Okay, so thinking time. For me, thinking time is very important. My thoughts make me a lot of money, so I prioritize thinking time. I also very much enjoy thinking. I enjoy thinking in strategy. I enjoy learning a lot in learning and thinking to me is equated. It's more or less the same thing. I'm either learning by myself or I'm learning from somebody else. Being time. Now, being time, I mean, as I get older, I'm entering the second half, you know, of like the typical lifespan. And I'm not sure if I'm a typical human or not, but we'll pretend I am for half a minute. And I'm entering the second half, and I'm like, oh, I like being time. Being time for me is highly spontaneous, very much in the receptive. It can take a lot of different, it can go into thinking or movement, it can go in different directions, but I really prioritize not having a jam-packed schedule. And if I'm saving 2 hours a day by not being in the kitchen, or I'm saving 30 minutes a day by not being in the kitchen, that means I get to just be and being and schedule that as like, well, I'm not in the kitchen, I might as well take that for doing whatever I want to do in the moment. Maybe that's meditate, maybe that's play with my dog, you know, the things. Okay, movement time. Some people notice that you're getting more movement time in. That's also important to calculate. It's just like, what are you doing with your attention? Where is that able to go when you're less food focused? And it's not even food focused, it's more of like food obsessed, right? Like they say 15% of modern people, this is a US study, spend 15% of their time thinking about food a day. And that's not like meal prep or eating. That's thinking about food, which is so weird when you get on the other side of this intermittent fasting habit and it's deeply automated and you don't have the same cravings and all that. I should also add in here, just like playing on like doing, like what are you doing? So it's do less, but what you do should be very highly specific. So you might have more time, like right now I'm redesigning a company. This company has in the past been known as Yoga Healer and Yoga Health Coaching, and it's going through a complete head to tails, topsy-turvy, upside down, inside out, redesign. I mean, from like, we don't know who we are. We think we're Club Thrive Global, clubthrive.global, like talk to us tomorrow, it might change. We're in a massive focus group analysis, business model analysis, like everything as we're pivoting. We're not pivoting away from yoga, we're adding a layer on top. Yoga Healer will still exist in some new form, as will Body Thrive, as will the Health Club and the Intermittent Fasting Challenge. So I have more time to do that. That's important on my career do list right now. Okay, you guys all have a list of what you do instead. How would we even calculate the value of this? Because what you need to ask yourself now is like, if you do all that more instead of spending time thinking about food, 15% of your daily thinking allotment, waking hours, that's so bizarre. Might not be that high for some of you, it might be higher for some of you because we're all somewhere around that average. That's a lot of time. What are you doing instead? What are you doing to really drive what's most important in your life forward? So right now, just write down what is most important in your life. What exactly is most important in your life to do? And what happens if you have 15% more time a day to do that? Because you're really not thinking about food at all. Like, it's just not really. When you get on the other side of the intermittent fasting habit, I promise it doesn't occur to you to think about food. Like, not in that way. You go to the refrigerator, there happens to be food. Maybe your future self did some things to help prepare food so that it's like really simple to make your glorious meal and nourish your glorious soul. Okay, you all know what's most important? Yeah, good. Is there a value to getting there faster? Is there a value to getting there faster? If it takes you 2 months or a year or 5 years? I had 2 friends, they announced to me on literally the same day that they were gonna get a divorce. One was divorced 3 months later, the other still hasn't gotten a divorce, and it's 2 years later. She still knows she needs to get a divorce. She's still actively like, it's on my list, it's on my project list. Yep. Right? But honestly, you guys, isn't this how we are? Don't we all have the thing that like, oh, it's sort of an open timeline. Doesn't matter if it takes 2 years to lose the weight or 2 months to lose the weight, or it doesn't matter if it takes 2 months to get in shape or 2 years to get in shape, or it doesn't matter if it takes 2 years to get the promotion or give yourself the promotion and earn more. And it's like, wait, no, actually it does matter. It totally matters. Like, who are we kidding? Who are we joking with? It's not even funny. It's your life. So what's the value of getting there faster? Ask yourself, be honest, be generous with your soul and what you're here to do in this lifetime. And ask yourself, is there's a value of getting there in a year instead of longer, or in a month instead of longer? And then if you can, just put a number down. It's very hard to calculate, but just put a number down. If I can restructure the entire company in 6 weeks instead of a year, what's the value to me to do that? I mean, off the top of my head, my guess is it's worth at least $500,000 to me personally. Just the time, the hassle, the energy, the like, why not? So what does that look like? How do I then need to use time? For some of you, it might be $1,000. And that's great. You just found $1,000. So it's super, super important to recognize and do that. Okay, last question, and then we're done with your assessment. Add that number to the top of your list. You now have an aggregate list. We're just trying. Those who are joining late, we're just trying to figure out our results. We're trying to figure out how much money we're saving, how much time we're saving, et cetera. But on the money thing, we actually want to come up with a final number. All right, so my next question is, what is evolving with your focus? So intermittent fasting has a number of proven effects, and these are, like there's study after study after study in the last 20 years, all in the NIH and in other countries. And one of the most reliable results is increase in cognitive function. So you are smarter, and you better recognize that, because you can get dumber really fast in a modern culture with degenerative habits. It's no joke. I mean, I talked to Stephanie Seneff, lead researcher at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. She's a senior researcher there. And she's like, yep, conventional habits right now, we're looking at 40-year-olds with dementia. Okay, yeah, no joke. I mean, this is scary, you guys. So like, if you are, my dad was asking me last night about someone who was advising me who was obese and like why it didn't work out. And I was like, at the end of the day, he couldn't learn. Like, it was a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem. And I'm not trying to beat up on anybody on anything or make anyone feel bad about anything. Like, we live in a culture that overfeeds people. I was raised on it. I was raised overfed. I was overfed. You can look at my 6-month-old pictures. I had chronic inflammation, systemic by 6 months old. And I've been overcoming that my entire life. And it's been a fucking project, I'll tell you that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure right now I don't have dementia. So that's good. And I'm 49. So what do I want to do? I want to help more people think this way. How is your focus changing right now from stepping up your intermittent fasting game? What do you want to focus on? Like, what is like calling your name, being like, over here? This is more important. Follow me. Come this way. And leave all that bullshit behind. Like, there's more important things to do over here. Like, what's that? What's calling your name? Okay, one big part of this, okay, like note that down, like pay attention to that. That's important. That's meaning. Meaning has direction and vision, so it's very, very important to pay attention to that. That will emerge. Part of it is the neuroplasticity that accompanies intermittent fasting. That's also proven. Increase in neuroplasticity, ability to learn. You can learn things that you honestly couldn't learn if you're not on this habit, period. If you have the opposite habit of eating too frequently, you're looking at what's called not neuroplasticity, but it's called neurodegeneration, which just simply means your mind's getting stuck in patterns. Those patterns get more heavily patterned. They're more limiting. They're limiting opportunity. Increased neuroplasticity means like the world's your oyster. There's opportunities everywhere you look, all the time. And they just keep getting better. And you know what to say yes to, and that's what you choose to do with your focus. Okay, one of the big things, quick story, lifestyle design. I had my dream team meeting yesterday. We've been meeting it's a group of 4 entrepreneurs. We all met when our businesses hit about the $1 million level 6 years ago, and everyone at that point was focused on growth. Everyone right now is focused on like lifestyle plus growth. Lifestyle. It slid right into number one. And I know when things are happening to entrepreneurs by definition are risk takers. That means they're at the forefront of innovative culture, period. It's how new shit gets built. It's why we have iPhones, right? It's why we have courses like this, right? Because it's like, it's at the edge, it's quick, it's fast, you get results fast, things move fast. So why are the risk takers obsessed with lifestyle design? Because it's like a save yourself culture right now. That's why. This culture is so toxic. If you don't design your own lifestyle super intelligently, like you cannot assume that like the normal around you has the right answers. You know, and whether that's a 40-hour work week, whether that's you should keep your job because you've got health benefits, whether that's you should keep your kid in school because it's convenient for your job where you're getting the health benefits, the whole thing, right, is not a value-driven culture. It's a consumer-driven culture. So how do you need to design your life, and how does intermittent fasting make you smarter about how to focus on designing your life? Just give yourself a few quick notes on this. I'm sure triggered a whole bunch of shit for a whole bunch of people. And that's good. That's my job. Help you think about your life, what's most important, your lifestyle design, what you want next. That can also include how much money you want next, because then you know that there might be different actions to take in order to have different results with that. Okay, third thing, better relationships. How are your relationships going to improve with intermittent fasting? Give yourself a few bullets here. Like, how is anyone noticing this already, that your relationships are improving with intermittent fasting? Yeah. How? What's different? Yeah, go ahead and unmute. Let's hear from a few of you. I'm a better parent. I'm going to start there. Like, nothing that's the most important is going to ever get by me, ever. I can see it 10 miles away. Is anyone way more honest right now? Is anyone way more honest? Yeah? Do you think that's important in relationships? Now, why are we more honest from intermittent fasting? This is a big question. It's like we're no longer carrying confusion. So we're no longer like as sort of like passive aggressive, manipulative, triggering, not getting our needs met because we're able to meet our own needs. So we're less needy, more looking for connection, intimacy, what's most important. Any of that going on? Is that worth something? I mean, this is where it gets tricky. What is that worth to you? What is that worth? I know for me it's worth a lot, because I really, at this point, it's kind of sad, but I feel like I can't trust culture to educate my daughter. But maybe that's the way it's always been too. Maybe parenting is super important, and parents really need to invest in what their kids know, what they do, how they live, how they think, to the degree that they can positively influence that. Okay, go ahead. How it was changing in relationships and what's the value? That's the question.
I'll talk, Kate. The communication is huge in relationships right now, especially having teenage children, and you have the time to talk about how you want to feel tomorrow. Deep dive into, even while he's eating, me talking and thinking and listening, like probably listening more than ever. And then also recognizing friendships that are a little chaotic. And you said something somewhere, the more people you have in your life, the more chaos you have. And so like with less food, I want more space everywhere, more space. My business is just taking off again. And yeah, that the relationship piece has been completely reworked.
Excellent. And this is what we should see across the board, you guys. Increased trust, increased communication, increased, and all that's coming from like you're more honest in yourself. Because intermittent fasting is going to take out it's going to refine self at the heart of it. That's all it's doing. You're just autophagy. You're just eating non-self right now. A good thing to estimate right now is like how many more pounds of non-self does your body need to eat? And I'm in there too. Like I probably could eat 3 to 4 pounds. And those last 3 to 4 pounds are like night and day. That's what's nuts. That's what people don't realize. Like a little amma goes a long way compared to what's called near amma in Ayurveda, which is like no junk.
Yeah, I can feel 2 or 3 pounds in between the challenges or whatever. I can feel them on a whole new level and they're going away.
Okay, good. So now everyone just tally up. What is your value of these components? Like if you really were to evolve your focus with this habit, what does that look like? And then tally everything up. So you've got all the things that we calculated. Again, we're just trying to really get a sense of the money. We calculated food, health, alcohol, buying stuff we didn't need. We calculated our time, buying food, prepping food, eating food, cleaning up. We then gave our time, we gave ourselves a wage for time, and then we calculated that on the annual. Some people now can remodel their kitchens. That seems super exciting. That seems way better than carrying around junk in the trunk and thinking about food. And then we calculated attention and what our attention's worth to hit a goal sooner rather than later. So we're adding that. And then lastly, we calculated things like our focused attention, our lifestyle design, and having better relationships. And what you all might find from this is you tally it all up and you have a number. And the number might not make any sort of rational sense, but put it in the chat. Like whatever that number actually is, it's data, it's a starting point. You can find the real facts behind this. You can think about this. I do recommend taking this workshop again after you have some numbers in front of you, your bank statement, your credit card statement. It's just so you know. It's just so that you can know. Okay. That's my dad. One of the things I really value is spending time with my dad. He and I had a super cool end of day chat last night in his yard. Okay, so Sophie's at over $250,000. Shay's at 56,000. It's huge, right? So there's just really big numbers that go with one habit, with the habit of intermittent fasting. So now I'm going to tell you for 2 minutes about the health club, and then we're going to do Q&A, and I can stay on because I know this went longer, but I think it was important. Did you guys find that helpful? Yeah, good to know. Kind of wish I'd learned this. I think I could have handled this in about kindergarten. Some things, right, where you're like, definitely would have been helpful by 7th grade. It's huge. You can't start too young with this way of thinking with your children. Anyone who is raising children, take that responsibility insanely seriously. Culture does not have your back. Modern education does not have your back. Healthcare does not have your back. So you need to do it. You just need to do it with them as early as you can. Okay, Laura's at 135K. Flora's at 20. She's at close to $250,000. Yeah, it is. It gets crazy pants because you start to learn the opportunity costs. The little tiny habits you have every day have massive, massive opportunity costs. Okay, so the health club, this is our answer. This is all part of our like big company restructure. The health club, many of you have seen this, some of you haven't. It's basically one habit, 1 year. All we're doing is coaching the intermittent fasting habits. It's me, it's Shay, and it's Brenda. And this is basically all it is. It's what it's all about. It includes our 2 challenges a year, our 2 detoxes a year. There's a ton of information here. I'll put the link in our chat, or Anna, if you could do that, that would be great. Oh wait, no, I got it. I can multitask. So the deal, this is the deal, is if anyone wants to sign up today, so the price of it is $3K, I'm gonna give you $500 off. And you can either do the New Jersey event for free, which is October 8th to 10th on the Jersey Shore. Or if you don't choose to do that, we're gonna put you in September Master Review Online 2-day with me about you, your purpose, your life goals, and get your action plan for the next chapter. This is all super strategic. It's all based on what we know people need in order to get this habit and to actually turn those numbers into real. So it's a $2,500 investment. There's monthly payments if you want to break it into 12 with a finance charge on that, but you'll still save the $500. The $500 coupon code to put in is this is hilarious, join THC 500. All right, THC users will appreciate that joke. My team in the Philippines came up with that. None of them can smoke weed because they live in the Philippines, but that's still pretty hilarious. All right, so that's it. We're on to Q&A. Does anyone have a question? Just cut and paste it back in the chat if you already listed it in the chat so we can all see it just come up first thing. There are a few written in questions that we have, and I'll start with Sarah Harvey's. So Sarah's questions around around menstrual cycle. I've heard to confirm this long term, which I want to do. Should you take off the week before the cycle begins, 5 to 7 days before the cycle begins? And yeah, so the way that looks is, basically, and there'll be a chapter. You guys, everyone in Health Club will get the Uninflamed book and audios and all that with that. There's a chapter on women and intermittent fasting in there. You guys all already have it in your PDF. There's a chart in there. I drew a really fancy picture or two, and all it basically shows is like mix in some 1410s the week before you get your period. You know how you want to eat more food? Some of you do. There's a really, really careful line in here, because those of us who are like, junk show before I get my period, like that turns your period into a junk show. Your period's the most intuitive time you're going to have all month. You want to maximize that. You want to go into that with a mission for clarity, to release into clarity. Like that is the mission of the menses. Release into clarity. And so if you go in there with a lot of junk because you're like, oh, they said I can eat whatever I want the week before I get my period, like, no. It's like, yeah, you can be a little bit more in the 1410s and 16/8s, and that has a lot to do with relaxing the progesterone phase so that it can fully complete, right? So we just don't naturally want to starve ourselves before getting pregnant, turns out. So the body, right, is kind of in this phase of like, let's replenish before we go into the next cycle. And it just makes the whole cycle work a little stronger. That also means that like during menses, that's Vata time. So in the menses ourselves, we should notice that it's really easy to extend our intermittent fasting times. It's really easy because the Agni, the appetite is really way more in the womb. And it's how the womb is connected to intuition. So it's 6th chakra, 2nd chakra connection. And so we're just receiving, like you're just getting insight, third eye, you're just getting insight when you're just kind of bypassing the need for food a lot in that period of time. Then you go into kapha time, you're feeling light, you're feeling strong, and you're really ready to receive and digest deep quality nutrition in that first week after your period. And then you can kind of do whatever feels good around the ovulation time. That's the feasting time. So the feasting time, like the urge to merge, you guys ever heard of it that way? I used to teach this whole like women's and moon cycle goddess worship class 20 years ago. Yeah, I did that too. The one who's married to Zeus. So this is Greek mythology. You can go to any mythology, you're going to find similar characters. Like there's someone who's just like, I will have all the children, right? Like I will meet all the gods' needs, like urge to merge, like total relationship focused goddess, like all about that. And it's very feast oriented, but that doesn't necessarily mean a long eating window. It's pretty, it's like you're really going to feast, you have a much shorter eating window. And then you're wining and dining and it's delicious and you're merging and you're connecting. And for some of you, you're going to do that with you're going to do that with a relationship partner. Others, might do that with a business partner or a best friend or a child, like it doesn't have to be romantic, but it's definitely that eating and connecting around food time of the month is ovulation. Yeah. Okay. Great question. And yeah, look at that image. I'm sorry I can't pull it up right now, but I promise you it's in It's in the book. Okay, Nicole's question, extending FMD. You're starting to expel mucus in your GI tract. Congratulations. And then how many calories adjustment? You know, I mean, one thing that's interesting, Nicole, I was thinking about this morning, is the 5-2. Do you guys know the 5-2? It's not in the book. So 5-2 is another variation of intermittent fasting, and it's 2-day fast a week, or 500 FMDs, 2 days, men, 650 FMD, 2 days. And then the other 5 days, like, you just don't worry about it. So an adjustment for you with that could be like 2 days and then 5 days on like a 18-6 or something. You know, it's just a good one to know about, because some of you, what I find with a lot of the fasting is you'll naturally start to gravitate to like, wow, I only needed 800 calories today. And if you haven't done an FMD, it's not really built in to your choice-making apparatus. It's just not on the menu. And if you don't know to order off the menu, right? But if you do a few FMDs, and the more you guys get used to these, and this is part of the whole reason behind the health club, is it's like, we need everyone to know in their body what an FMD is, feel it, know it, so you can automatically flow into one or flow into a day or two of one whenever you need. And when you do that, like, you might have just prevented the next wave of a COVID variant that would have kicked your ass for 2 weeks, and instead, like, yeah, right? Instead, you took a nap. Right? Because the research is all there, you guys. It's all there. I'm reading all the scientific literature on, like, not all of it, because there's way too much. There's way too much of it actually coming out of China. There's so much. But the studies are basically however much chronic inflammation you experience equals the amount that virus is going to kick your ass. Okay. So you can say that in a lot of different ways, but I just find that way is a little bit succinct. Let me just say one more thing. You'll know when you overeat, because it'll sit like a fucking rock at this point. Like, you'll just be like, that was bad, you know, and your energy will go down and your mood will go down, and you'll start to have, you know, think about things where you're like, I don't want to be thinking about that. I mean, and it's that fast, you guys. It starts to just get that fast. Many of you, what you're going to find is that you savor the fast. Is anyone experiencing that? You're like, I don't want to cut out yet. It's getting good. Right? Stem cells, growth hormone, serotonin, melatonin. Those are all the sex hormones. Like, you start to naturally ride the inner high, and it's entirely biochemical. The microbiome, if you look at microbiome in 2 sectors, there's the eubiotic and dysbiotic, so the healthy and the unhealthy. So the healthy microbiome relies on fasting time, period. Relies on it. Its job as an organ, so the job of the organ of the microbiome is to regulate circadian rhythm, period. Human DNA cells cannot do that without the microbiome. Circadian rhythm regulates sleep and appetite. It regulates waking time and going to bed time. It's hugely important for every neurotransmitter and hormone. So if the microbiome's running that show and you cut off fasting time a little too early, you're just like, oh, and your microbiome's like, oh, it was getting so good, right? And so you just pay attention to that. Just pay attention to that. And it's, yeah, so much easier. So you guys, the reason with the health club, like, we're just building a world of support around this one habit, because we know it's so important. And we know it's important. The quicker you find your edge with it and get on the other side of digesting, or the autophagy, digesting the toxins, I promise, the happier you'll be, and the more those numbers that you wrote down actually become real. Okay, menopause. Perimenopause can last anywhere from, I would say, a day to 10 years. Highly variable. So much dependent on the quantity of inflammation, toxicity. You can measure that in a lot of different ways. Like, one that's popular now is the fat-based toxins. So anything that is a a chemical toxin. They're called EDCs, ECDs, endocrine chemical disruptors, because they disrupt your endocrine system. And now you're thinking, endocrine, that sounds like hormone. Wait, how are they different? What's different between endocrine and hormone? And the question is like semantics, right? The language evolves over time. So what we think of as hormonal issues are endocrine issues. What we think of as endocrine issues is all wrapped up in our fat tissues. What's also wrapped up in our fat tissue is EDCs, if we're a modern human. We all are. So like it or not, the chemical industry has had its toll. The more we're on the other side of that, like menopause becomes this incredibly, or peri becomes this incredibly intuitive, awakening, feminine receptivity, like deep wisdom downloads opportunity that may present healing crises, in which case the response with fasting is to be with it, move with it, feel it, see what's happening, hydrate it, clear it, get support around it, get guidance, mentoring, right? And that's why we coach. That's why we health coach, is because that makes such a huge difference, just changing the perspective from like, this is a problem I need to solve, to like, what is my body trying to tell me to do next? Am I listening? Do I have support around that deep, deep listening? So most women will find, I mean, I have a pretty high activity level for my age. I still need at least a third less calories than I did at 40. At least a third less, at least. The studies don't show that. The studies show that average humans between the ages of 20 and 60 have about the same caloric needs a day. But these studies, it's like, to me, there's so much questionability as to what that actually means, and whether or not the 20-year-old is intermittent fasting has already figured shit out that I didn't figure out, because maybe I have no idea. You know, maybe if like the whole time I was just eating way less, then I'd still be eating the same amount I was eating at 20, because I could tell you this, I was overeating at 20. Okay, and eating too frequently. So any symptoms that are arising from overeating, you know, whether it's hot flashes, brain fog, weight gain, weight creep, moodiness, all of that, like the only ones that intermittent fasting, like the people that have to kind of be worried about it are the Vata, high Vata types. But even those, just follow the Vata intermittent fasting, just eat at the same times as much as you can, create as much regularity in your life. And then my answer is still the same. Okay. Krishna has one question. Beneficial to do FMD 1 day a week? Yeah, totally. That's like the 2-5ers. There's good research on YouTube on the 5-2. It's not called 2-5, sorry. It's 5-2. Yep. No joke. Same effects as the other intermittent fasting rhythms. And they're just, to me, something that's super externalized in the beginning, because rules can help, right? Boundaries can help, guardrails can help, bumpers can help. And so it's helpful to have a rhythm. Where does it go? I think it just goes like super intuitive flow, not thinking about food, just being like, oh, this is what happened with food today, this is what happened with food tomorrow, like where it just becomes so much less of a focus in life. And then feasting becomes more of a thing as well, but it's very occasional, right? So it might be like one big family meal a week. Like we do Sunday family dinner. Rest of the time, like people are kind of in float, like truly, like we'll sit down a few times together and eat because it's convenient for all of us, but you know, and that's what I see, that's what I just see happening in general. Like those of you who have family reunions coming up or meeting up with people, should be like, let's just plan a few main meals and let's kind of rotate around that. And so that the focus isn't like 3 meals a day, kind of, we need to sit down for dinner every night as a family. And some of that stuff that just makes actually truly feasting impossible. Because a true feast, it's fun, you know? It's like you care about your senses and the atmosphere and each other and the conversation. And all part of that is a well-codified human habit around the ritual of feasting. Okay, Cool. If anyone wants to unmute and ask questions, 5'2" for Vata and underweight. It's a good question. I mean, Judy, as you're getting stronger and more rhythmic, there's going to be a lot more flexibility if you're just like curious about it, you know. And for some people, you could even experiment with like 1,000-calorie day, because even 1,000 calories, if you're normally eating 2,000 calories, is a lot less. If you're normally eating 1,500 calories, eating 750 calories is a lot less. The calorie restriction research with mice primarily was done about 100 years ago, and they found 30% less calories. They call that calorie restriction. Had longevity effects, better, like less tumors. Because you think about, if we really start to think about what happens with the body when it's overfed and it can't upcycle nutrition internally, is that stuff starts to grow that's not supposed to be there. And so that can be a really good reason to just be like, oh, less, maybe more. You guys, some of you have also noticed this. Is anyone's digestion better? Digestion, absorption, elimination? I'm seeing some nods. Super important to notice, right? Like maybe the gas is gone, maybe the hyperacidity is gone, maybe the constipation's gone. Agni, or the digestive fire, it's cellular, it's in the nucleus of the cell, it's on the cell membrane of every cell. There's a bunch of agnis in the liver. And then there's the main agni in the digestive tract. There's agnis at every level of tissue layer. So there's a lot of agni in the body in Ayurvedic theory, super helpful theory to understand with preventative disease. Those agnis get turned up. And that's why I'm really apprehensive to tell a Vata person not to intermittent fast and not to find a little bit of FMD or calorie restriction. I think we can use those words interchangeably, so that they can start to actually ignite more of the agni and digest more of whatever feels outdated in their psycho-spiritual, physiological, you know, and see what happens. Like those two things. And then I know you're doing you know, upcycling, you're going to get more absorption. Okay, great. Yeah, and that'll help. Like just plugging in the right things at the right time is super helpful. You guys, with depletion, period, exclamation point, organ meat, bone broth. I have less tolerance for like vegans and vegetarians who are constantly depleted and constantly working on depletion and just won't get organic, local, or as locally as you can, sourced organ meat and bone broth, because like just get on the other side of it and then you can decide if you want to be vegan or vegetarian again. And I'm not like a huge meat eater or anything like that. Like I'm a massive wild plants person. Organ meats and bones largely go to waste in most countries right now. So you're not taking up any resources. There's no environmental impact factor at all, because this shit's going into the trash or it's going into dog food. And like, you can get really high quality stuff. Some of you may have to talk to your local butcher, create demand in the market, order it online in the meantime. But it's great, and it works so fast. Beef liver, chicken liver, a little goes a long way. You guys saw my pictures on the challenge of my like 3 ounces of liver, my beef liver. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I bought some bone broth. It's frozen, but I got it.
Great. And then, you know, so I really encourage people to start making it. Those of you who live near the coast, fish bones work great. The French called it bouillabaisse, right? But like we have as humans a very long history of cooking bones into broth and using that broth to strengthen our bones, because bone marrow creates immune cells. Anyone wants resilience, you got to really care about your bone tissue absorption and deep nutrification of bones. Everyone, you're gonna buy less. Like we all just figured that one out. When you think of how much money this will actually make you, it gets super exciting. Thanks, you guys. Have a good one. See you around. Bye.